And now we're very privileged to have a talk from Janice, who has a wide-ranging set of experiences, which I'm sure are interesting to a lot of people's career aspirations, and also adding into their own research these set of skills. So Janice is a senior project manager in citizen science at the Open University, where she manages projects using innovative education and web-based technology to engage the public. Learning about science, particularly biodiversity. So both of those things are extremely current, what with sustainability and climate change, but also lots of conversations about innovation in education, innovation in assessment, and so on, particularly with things like ChatGPT and stuff hitting the newsstands at the moment. She teaches at the university, does citizen science and outreach, and has a range of qualifications, comes all the way from journalism, environmental management, science, media communication, and so on. So an absolutely fantastic and impressive range of experiences that I'm sure this audience is really looking forward to hearing about. So Janice will talk for about half an hour, and then we have a good set of time for a really good Q&A and discussion about the stuff that she will bring up. So Janice, really pleased to see you and to hear this presentation. Looking forward to it myself. Over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. I must apologize. Hello, everybody. First of all, I'm struggling with laryngitis, so my voice is not the best at the moment. But so please do bear with me. If you don't hear something, then hopefully we can pick up on things after over email if necessary. I'll just get my slides going.
Okay, that looks good.
Fantastic. Hello again, everybody. Yep.
That's fine. That's good.
Perfect. So yeah, so as Jerry said, I'm at the Open University, where I've been at the OU now for gosh, it's coming on to almost 15 years now. And the role I've been focusing on since I've been there has been citizen science. It wasn't called that originally. As some of you might be aware of, citizen science has sort of grown in depth and breadth and acknowledgement over the past, say, 10 to 15 years. So it's been exciting to have been part of this growth and development of something which is plays such an important role. So what I'll be talking to you today is giving you what I call a whistle-stop tour around some of the approaches that we've been using through the work that I've been involved with at the OU, and sort of what this poses and what some of the things that you can probably get involved with if you're interested in. So it might be fast, but hopefully you'll get something from it that can be useful for you. So to start with, just to sort of give you the outline of what this will include, is looking at a holistic approach to how we practice citizen science. So it's looking at how we make connections between research, teaching, learning, and engagement. And that's sort of how we've been doing it over the years. I'll give you a little bit of look at what some of the early days things that happened, and one of the earlier projects that sort of set us on the path to what we're doing now. I look at how the practice as it is now with some of the projects and platforms that we have running, and demonstrate through some examples how this contributes to teaching and learning and supporting citizen observatories, looking at engagement, and highlight examples from these different projects and initiatives that we're involved with. So we look at iSpot and the associated projects, we look at Treezilla and associated projects, and then we're going to reflect back at what iSpot actually does through contributes using learning through and engagement through what we call our engagement curve. I'll also demonstrate some of the things that we can say, what are the results and the impact, and sort of summarize looking at what this sort of means for us and how we're looking at things for the future. So some of you probably know this, but I thought I'd just throw this in there just in case for those who are less familiar with citizen science. This is the definition for citizen science that was added into the Oxford English Dictionary in 2014. But citizen science isn't new. Citizen science has dates back to probably, like people like to say that Charles Darwin, for example, was one of the earlier scientists. We would go and collect specimens and collect information and share that. And at that time, a lot of people who were doing science weren't actual what you could call strict scientists. So it's quite interesting how it has evolved. But what the important thing that happened with this whole framework that came out of this is the recognition and the acknowledgement of the different players in citizen science, the role that citizen science can play in terms of advancing scientific literacy, as well as the different and as well as how this impacts on the different players. So a scientist can benefit from it, as well as a member of the general public, and the benefits can be in different ways. And this is just how some of the things that we reflect on in how we practice citizen science. So some of you who you might be familiar with the OU is over 50 years old, and we're regarded as one of the main leaders in distance learning. And we use innovative educational technology in doing this. What we have done in that respect is we sort of integrate this into the model of how we do citizen science. And we utilize this within STEM pedagogy. I'm based in the Faculty of STEM, but the work we do spreads across the university into different units and areas as well. So it touches in lots of different areas. So in terms from the research perspective, citizen science contributes through monitoring, classifying, collecting, and analyzing data, and also looks including into technologies for citizen observatories. And I'll talk a little bit more about that to one of the projects that we're involved in a little bit. And also STEAM connections. We also have an interest in STEAM connection that is actually connecting the arts with the science and technology, engineering and mathematics, and looking at how we can use this as a mechanism towards engagement and inclusivity. And then of course, we're a university, and the balance of what we do is learning. So citizen science also taps into research around learning journeys and communities of practice. And that's one of the areas that I'm quite interested in, is looking at how a person maneuvers through the use of these different things, the reasons why, the motivations, and what they get out of it, and how this is actually a community of practice, a body of people working together, different pursuits, but ultimately achieving a common goal. And of course, diversity, equity, and inclusivity are quite important as well. And in terms of learning and teaching, we tap into this across both formal and informal learning. So it taps into our modules, which formal modules and for degrees and so on, and at different levels, but also through free learning opportunities and also general engagement, which people can benefit and learn from in different ways. And then there are also links we've fostered with practical science and open science via our open science lab, which sort of makes practical science available online. And we integrate citizen science, some of these opportunities for anybody to utilize. And this is also integrated into different learning opportunities as well, with different institutions and not just our own. And then, of course, there's also opportunities for field work. This biological recording, and this is quite key, and this is something which, when we integrate into our modules, that students actually do utilize the platforms and so on that we offer through citizen science to demonstrate some of the things that they do in the field as part of their learning exercises. And then there is the outreach and public engagement, and this can be face-to-face, can be through online events and activities. And also importantly, through the links that we have with the BBC through different collaborations and promoting different free learning resources. There's this whole combination of things that have made our citizen science practice quite different, I would like to say, because it's a mixture of things that makes it what it is and had contributed to what we've been able to do over the past years. So in terms of the the early days at the OU. Now, this is just I like to show this. This is the 1970s. It was an article that was published that showed some of the work that students were being involved in. And we like to call this some of the early days of citizen science, where students were actually doing surveys around air pollution and collating these results. And so they were doing it as a practice of part of their learning, but also contributing valid information, what we call scientific data. And this is one of the early initiatives that was done by as part of one of our modules. But it's some of this thinking that also contributed to what we started thinking about what could we do using some of the innovative tools and techniques that we have on board to push this further. And this sort of materialized a bit for us in the STEM faculty in the 2000s when we started what was regarded as the first one of the first European project in citizen science called the Evolution Mega Lab. And basically this focused on getting the public involved in collating information on the banded snail Sapir. It was targeted around the anniversary of Charles Darwin's birth. It was 150 years, Charles Darwin's birth, and also 150th anniversary of the origin of species. And what this did, it was a study of evolutionary responses to climate, but also it did it in two ways. We sort of collated historic data on a platform between 1930 and 1980. And then we had the public and anybody collate data, new data, and this was compared to explore population change. We also had a short course, and it was also in an undergraduate course, and we also published books and so on that related to it. This was quite a successful initiative for just over the year it ran, where we had over 6,500 volunteers across 15 countries in Europe. And we developed the website in 12 languages. We had posters, we had linked to BBC programs and other online resources. And from out of this, we were able to publish quite a few different research papers. So this was one of the things that that's sort of the route we started, and looking at this whole connections of learning being an intrinsic part of this, and using citizen science as a tool that facilitates learning, but also contributes to teaching as well. And that crossover and research and engagement is one of the early successful initiatives that we did. Around the same time, we're doing other things. And this is quite a busy slide, but it sort of demonstrates some of the things that we started then, but we've been able to continue. So iSpot is our main platform. I'll be talking a bit more about iSpot in a bit. But with iSpot was launched in 2009, but basically we started developing iSpot as part of the Opal Explore Nature initiative. We were one of the partners. That was a big lottery fund initiative to get the public engaged with nature. iSpot was one of our main deliverables, and one of the key things we maintained to do was to continue iSpot at the end of the project. That project ended in 2013, and iSpot is still going. So it just shows the breadth of what we can do with these types of things. But in doing so, we try to get new projects on board. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about a European project that we're involved in called Cross the Cloud. And another project, which is an ERC funded, which is coming to an end, called Decide, where we've been focusing in the UK around recording nature where it matters, looking at some particular species. Then we've also been working on other projects, new projects, which are affiliated with iSpot, but cover different things. So there's X-pollination, which looks at pollinator species and has its own little platform around that, looking at bees. And then we have a new project called Sense, which is helping children explore nature through sensory activity. It's an interesting one that we have, and we're using technology to do this, haptic technology to do this. And then the other big platform we have is Treezilla, the monster map of trees. And Treezilla is affiliated with a main project called Branching Out, which was one of them under the Future of Treescapes program. So I'll tell a little bit more about this. And then there's some other interweaving projects. There's two other small ones, but I'm not going to go into detail about these two. There's one called Engaging Environments, which is a UK-wide platform for inquiry, co-inquiry, with diverse communities and environmental scientists, and we're part of this I'm part of this project, more helping to facilitate citizen science elements within this project, which involves a whole load of partners across the UK. And there's another small one we did recently called Walking the Walk, where we're helping diverse groups to engage with nature and learn more about it with scientists. So whistle-stop tour, as I said, and a lot of this work we combine and do across looking at our citizen science and artificial intelligence, and we have a research group that facilitates that, and there's a link there as well. You will be able to get these slides with all the links after. So I'll just move on. So I'll tell you a bit more about iSpot. So iSpot, Your Place to Share Nature, was an initiative that we developed, as I said, as part of the Open Explore Nature project. And we knew from our experience that the BBC programs, people like nature, they like to watch nature programs. What we wanted to do was to get them off the sofa and doing something. We knew that there was a need to help to build identification skills, but for those who are more novices, to lower the barriers that exist. We want to help to make nature more accessible and open, support new generation of naturalists, and also contribute to biological recording. And so we came up with iSpot. So iSpot has gone through an evolution. We've been adapting it over the years as we learn more about how it works and what it contributes to. So what we have now are 4 core features or themes around how it works. So firstly, people can explore. So you can explore the site. You don't have to be registered. You can browse and look at the species spotted so far. You can record, and to do this, you need to register, submit observations, try to identify it yourself. If you can't, the community will help you. And you can also identify by engaging in discussions and helping others, and in doing so, building your iSpot reputation. And of course, there's learning, and we integrate quizzes, and we also have courses linked with it that people can take. And we also have identification keys that are built into the platform as well. And one of the things you can do, you can make it bespoke to what you want. So you can create what we call an iSpot project around a particular species or a particular area, etc., and collate what you want to know about or find out more about, or see what's an iSpot about that through that part of that feature. Here are just some snapshots from the site. The 2 QR codes linked to the first one demonstrates one observation of a particular plant species, which was put on, and what you can see of the interaction of the community. As you scroll through, you can see the interaction of the community that leads to an identification of it. And then, of course, we link into different species dictionaries, which actually gives us the helps to make those identifications correct. And what I've added in here is a QR code to the area, in the hierarchical area that links to plants. So you can have a look at that if you click on the QR code. I'll move on because we could talk about this for quite a bit, but we'll move on to the other areas. So iSpot, as I said, contributes to learning in quite a specific way. And in this instance, it links into one of our undergraduate courses called Biology of Survival. It's a 2nd level undergraduate course. We're running for quite a few years now. And iSpot is a tool that helps students in their learning. So they do a BioBits activity in October, and they do a pollination study around March, April. They put their observations up, and they learn from it. But at the same time, they're learning from the community of experts and other people on the site. You have experts, you have novices, and I'll tell you a little bit more how this works in a little bit. But basically what it is, they put them up, they get help. So they're learning from the community and learning themselves and learning as part of a cohort group on their course. So that's quite an interwoven process. And there's been good support for this. And what here is when the earlier external examiners noted that the iSpot activity was quite innovative, as it enables students to have interaction with experts, which they would never have been able to tap into without this ability, without iSpot. So in the course, they're able to tap into this and draw upon this wide range of information and expertise. So I'm gonna just chat a little bit now about how we expand what we're doing with citizen science in the other areas, and this focuses on looking at citizen science as supporting citizen observatories. iSpot is a citizen observatory, and we are one of the citizen observatories involved in this project called Cost for Cloud, and it's focused on boosting citizen science by integrating citizen science within the European open science landscape. And in doing so, we've created these user-centered innovative services that can support citizen observatories and support people as they use these platforms. And it facilitates networking and knowledge alignment. So people have been involved in the co-design of these services and the integration of them into the different platforms. So iSpot is one of 9 platforms that's been involved in this project, and 13 services are being created. On iSpot, we've integrated 2. We've actually integrated one from that was developed by the team from Planet, who are also involved in the project. So there's a Planet API, which enables us to integrate AI, and there's another one we've actually integrated. So we've integrated AI for plants and integrated AI for mammals using FastCat Cloud, which is another innovation which was developed as well. So those are on the website. So you will see them as you put observations on. They come up as suggestions. So we want to make sure we separate the human interaction versus computer interaction. That is quite a big debate, as we know. So we've integrated in a specific way that facilitates that separation. Right, so I'll just move on. So one of the other things that we've been doing because is trying to find a way to share what's come out of this project. So developing training resources and best practice resources. This is one of the areas that we've also led on from the OU. So what we have is a Cost for Cloud toolbox and evidence hub, which hosts a whole range of resources around training and capacity building, focus on the services, best practice guidelines of some of the experiences involved in the project, educational resources, case studies, and also a space so we can share and learn more from the things that you look at, the things that you can explore within this area. So I'll move on to quickly talk about one of the other projects that we've been involved with iSpot called Decide. The Decide project is led by CEH, and basically it's focused on creating opportunities where we can target recording effort through an adaptive sampling process to improve biodiversity monitoring. It was focused mainly on moths and butterflies, but what it did is create a model which we hope can be adapted to other species. So basically it allows people to discover new places to record wildlife. You can use the Decide tool to show places that have a high priority for recording, choosing locations and visit them. And you can record the species and you can link it with your iRecord account as well as your iSpot account so that it demonstrates the links between the two. We facilitate some discussions and user groups with our community as part of the development of this tool, and we're also encouraging the community to continue to utilize it, particularly as we're coming into these periods now. We can actually collect observations on these particular species. So what it involved was sessions with users and recorder groups are in certain areas across the UK, and as well as iSpot users, and they contributed to the whole design and collaborative framework for this initiative. So one of the things we do, as I said, is we try to engage different audiences in what we do. And XPoly is a project that focuses on creating tools and resources that can facilitate children to learn more about pollination. It can be utilized by communities as well, where the main target was schools. Through this initiative, we basically built a program where we work directly with schools to help them look at environmental issues around pollinating insects, so that they could actually create more pollinator-friendly environments on their school grounds. One of the key things with this initiative is that they can actually sign what we call a poly promise. and utilize that in as part of a promise to do these activities. The X-pollination platform helps with the identification of bee species, and there are a whole range of resources and activities that are available through the website that anybody can utilize. As I said, target school children, but community groups and anybody can utilize it as well. Right. So moving on now to Treezilla. And Treezilla is another platform that we developed, focused this time on trees. What we were interested in doing was looking at how we could get the public involved in mapping trees, but also get tree information, which is sometimes difficult to access and put together because of how things are recorded by different bodies that do this. We created Treezilla with the aim of creating the largest open tree map in the UK and possibly in Europe. And we launched it in 2013, and it's still ongoing. The whole idea behind this is that it will help anyone learn more about trees. And what it does, it highlights the role that trees play, more particularly in the urban environment, and the benefits they provide. The key thing about Treezilla is that it has a system integrated that calculates the ecosystem service value of the trees. And so far, through partnerships with public authorities, tree wardens, etc., and other public bodies, we have over 1 million trees recorded on the platform. The key thing about this is that you can go in and update tree information as things change. You can integrate other things. You can also note if there is anything affecting the tree as well. And you can also tie it into looking at what's happening in your particular spot. So some people adopt a spot in an area and keep implementing by putting information in about those trees. The thing about this is that we know that there's not that many public records of some trees, and we're trying to fill some of the gaps that exist. And this is an open platform that anybody can access. So it makes it accessible for anybody that will need it. So hopefully reduce some of the pressures on some of the public bodies that get questions coming in about these things. So one of the things that we've created as part of our research, we've contributed to the development of a tree data standards around valuing the benefits of urban trees. And this is in collaboration with Forest Research, who are a partner that are involved with Treezilla. So one of the key initiatives that we've been involved with more recently with Treezilla is one of the Future Treescapes funded projects, and this one is called Branching Out. And the project is led by Loughborough University and involves us at the OU and University of York, Forest Research. And the key thing about Branching Out is that we're looking at new ways to map, predict, and communicate the social and cultural values of trees. And we're focused on 3 cities: Milton Keynes, York, and Cardiff. And the key thing of this is that we're integrating a whole range of different tools and resources. We're doing remote sensing. We're collating information through urban tree observatories and getting people involved in mapping. We're using Treezilla to create a citizen science link and tie and create a map some of the other trees in different ways to collect this information. One of the key thing is that we're getting these citizens involved, and we're getting what we call end users involved, those who manage trees. We've set up what we call citizen panels and end user panels, and we're having workshops with these individuals across the 3 cities, collecting information from them about how they value trees in these different ways. At the same time, we're also using storytelling as a tool to engage with, as well as to collect information. This is quite interesting because we're looking at the treescapes from the past, present, and future, and collating all this information to make it accessible. We're creating videos and different resources that can be accessible and sharing these quite widely. We're working in these 3 cities, so what we hope is that what we create can be adapted and utilized in other areas as well. For those who are interested in learning more about branching out and all the projects involved in the future of treescapes, the Treescapes conference is coming up in a couple of weeks, and there's still a couple of places left. So the link is available if you want to register. It will be in Cardiff this year. So if you're interested in registering, the link will be made. The link is available and you can actually attend. So, as I said, we'll stop through these initiatives, a reminder of some of the things that I've been talking about. And what I'm going to talk a little bit now about is what's come out of this by looking a bit more at iSpot and what's come out of this. How are things interconnected in terms of the engagement and what impact is this having? So one of the key things with iSpot is that we always wanted to make sure that it helps people. And the key thing with this, we wanted to make sure that it can help people learn and build skills. And one of the earlier reviews we did of this with iSpot showed that by the time a user got to their 50th observation, they were able to self-identify. And that is a really key thing because it demonstrates that through repetition and help, people are building their skills and learning through this process that involves citizen science. And what we know is that by focusing on learning, we're helping people generate not only valid scientific evidence, but it's training them to become biological recorders, who we know are so important, play such an important role in understanding our natural world. One of the ways, the thing that's contributed to how iSpot works is the support from the expert community. And iSpot has a whole range of specialist scheme societies, representatives who utilize the platform and contribute their expertise. And this is an amazing way how iSpot works, because this is through collaborative approach that facilitates the identification of different species, recording, but also the learning process that people go through as they get help in identifying. And of course, the data that is provided on the experiences within iSpot then also contribute to our research objectives. So the wider side of engagement that we do, as I mentioned, we are involved, and as you probably have seen a lot, we are involved in through OU-BBC collaboration, a whole range of BBC programs, some in the past, and one of the most recent ones was Wild Isles on BBC One. And iSpot was featured in the poster that people could actually request. I believe though that we've ran out of posters, but you can still download a copy of the Wild Isles poster, and you can watch the Wild Isles series on iPlayer. Another thing we do as well to engage is events. For the wild scale, we do them at the local level. This is one that I'm particularly proud of, because when the OU decided to do an event at the climate conference in Glasgow a year ago, they decided they wanted citizen science to be featured as the part of the OU event, and that was the decision made. So I was able to speak at this event about citizen science and the impact it has within the climate agenda, and through a whole perspective of art, looking at it through an art perspective on how we can contribute in that way. And this is available if anybody would like to see, but it demonstrates the interlinkages of engaging the people and getting them involved in different ways. And this is quite an interesting one that we did a couple of years ago. On the other side of things, of course, is offering free learning. And we have a free learning platform called Open Learn. We make pieces of courses available as new content as well. And one of the courses that we have available there is one focused on citizen science and global biodiversity. It's what's called a badged open course. And this means that you can interconnect your learning within that with other things to sort of package them. There's a way to package things in your learning on Open Learn. And this course contributes to that. So this is available. You can learn when it also utilizes iSpot. You can also learn how to use iSpot as part of the process as well. So all of this, what's the impact? What has it been actually doing? You know, I've been talking a lot. What's been actually achieved through all of this? And iSpot demonstrates this really well, because we do collate a lot of data around what happens on iSpot. So from the data that we have, we know that we have, you know, quite a lot of visits to the site, in the millions since the site was launched. And this all contributes to the sustainability of the platform in terms of the community itself and the processes that it contributes to, the learning, the research, etc. We know that it's viewed a lot, and people sort of stay a bit on the site. Sometimes people will stay at least between 6, 8, 9 minutes on the site, which can be quite long in terms of value of site usage. In terms of what we've collated, we have over 1.7 million images of over 43,000 species. In terms of observations, we have, we're coming up to 900,000 observations. And of this, over 325,000 are plant species. We have identifications and agreements. And importantly, also, we have over 80,000 registered users from across the world. Of course, we have the UK community is one of the most active ones, but we have people who use it from all over. You know, just over a quarter of these, almost a third of these people actually who are registered actually add observation, reasonably active community. And from those who have added observations, they've added an identification. Over 80,000 have added an identification, and over 10,000 have added an agreement, which is basically agreed and then putting a likely ID on one. In terms of the different organizations that support us, we have over 200. We're looking for more. So please, if you're interested and you're an expert or want to join in, please do. You can be badged as such on the site. And we can talk a bit more about that if people are interested as well. And we have thousands of education institutions and educators and groups who utilize iSpot through their own practice. So we're actually contributing to other practice, if you get what I mean, additional learning. We have a number of undergraduate courses, and that include undergraduate courses in science, an undergraduate course in education, and master's courses, etc., who utilize iSpot in formal learning. And in terms of policy, we contribute to different nature reports, including the State of Nature report, and other policy documents, and broader citizen science research. So, in a nutshell, we're focusing with citizen science in a holistic approach which taps into research, teaching, and engagement. And through this process, we've interwoven and created this whole body of work that we have, which we hope will sustain and continue even longer in the future. And thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Janice. That's a tour de force. An avalanche of information and impact. Fantastic. I think I put in the chat, my wife's obsessed with a trail cam at the moment and has discovered a badger in the garden. So she will certainly go on iSpot and see. I noted while you were talking, you can get people to help you identify what sex it is, which is what we were talking about this morning. So it's, I know it sounds trivial, but she's really excited about it anyway. Okay, so open up for questions and comments. I'll perhaps kick off with a first one. I mean, this is great, obviously, and as you say, engages the public, but it also has a harder science side to it. But what are the barriers, do you think, for getting the public involved in citizen science project from both the public and the professional sides? I mean, is it seen as less important or something by the scientists, and do the public think they can't engage? What's the deal there?
Well, that has changed. I mean, in the earlier years, as I said, the evolution of the concept of citizen science has increased its value, so to speak, over the years. It's more recognized as being something that can contribute to valid scientific data, because what had happened in the past, the citizen scientists were viewed more as just collectors. And so they weren't viewed as contributing to the scientific process itself, but this has changed. Projects are evolving, projects are changing. It's being realized that by collaborating, by co-designing, by co-creating, you get more out of the process. And it also benefits the volunteers, individuals as well in different ways. The approach we take is to make sure that one of those benefits is learning and skills building in a specific way, but this can be done in various different ways through other initiatives. I know we have some unique examples which other bodies wouldn't be able to have, but there are lots of different ways that this can be done. But I think it's been positive for citizen science, particularly over the past 10 years, and I've seen it evolve because I've been working in it over the past 10, 15 years and been part of this evolution. And it has grown. We've seen the growth in the types of representative bodies that support it. So we have a European Citizen Science Association, for example. We have a global one called Citizen Science Association, which is based in the US. And they've been sort of sprouting up all over the globe. And we all work together. So at one time you go to these conferences, you see the same faces. What's happened nice is that nowadays is that you see different faces, which is great. But you also see some of the same faces, and that collaboration is happening. So yeah, I think it's, I don't know if I answered the question, but I've seen sort of a positive growth. There are challenges. Challenges is funding and continuity, and I could go on about those, but it's been more recognized. I should definitely say that.
Okay, excellent. And do you feel personally, with your wide experience that we heard about at the beginning when I introduced you, that do you have to have those unique skills of being a journalist and a scientist to be successful here, or
exactly? I've just sort of happened on it. I like to say I'm not a scientist because I'm not. I'm a science communicator. I came into this after being an environmental reporter for a couple of years, and I did different studies focused on environmental management, different things, and my career is a hodgepodge of different things. And that's that I ended up at the OU in one of these fantastic roles 15 years ago when they just got the big lottery funding to manage a suite of projects around big lottery funding, over £2 million that the OU got. It was a £12 million initiative across the UK, and it sort of springboarded from that. But one of the lucky things about it is that citizen science is evolving, and so I must say that even though I've been involved in similar things over the years, I haven't been bored, because it's the growth and the change and the fact that you can actually tap into different areas and different things and aspects of research and learning and so on. That's made it quite interesting over the years.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen anybody with hands up yet or anything coming through in the chat. Ellie has put up the Future Treescapes Conference, which was mentioned by Janice during the talk. So please do that. Here's an interesting question in the chat, which you can see. These big data sets that come out of citizen science, what about lots of land being inaccessible and owned by Prince Charles or something, or the British Army or whatever?
That is an issue, and of course we always make a point of telling people that think about access when you're trying to go into areas, and not go to areas that are not publicly accessible. But one of the things that this isn't done through ISPA, it's done through a sister project at Open University called the Floodplain Meadows Partnership, and that initiative actually partners with landowners to actually do their monitoring, so that landowners are involved in the monitoring, but it also gives access for the team to go out and do this sort of monitoring. So there are ways it can work. We can actually get get permission and get things to do. The key thing is that, of course, it's difficult to do more of this, because this, of course, is costly to do the engagement and the collaboration to make this happen. But it is a useful approach to do it that way. But engaging them is key, because you do want them involved. They need to understand the value of it and why it is important as well. But it also increases their understanding of things as well.
And sort of related to that occurs to me as you were answering. Do you think it potentially gives us biased data sets, not just because of the land ownership, but because where people go? So, you know, is it looking for your keys under the light? And so we don't know what we don't know, sort of thing.
It kind of is, but one of the things is that there's so much knowledge out there that isn't known. So if all of this is combined together, it then gives us more expanded knowledge in different areas. Because what we've found is that we've done some analysis around the gaps of data within iSpot as a way to encourage people to say, can you record from these other areas? It is a challenge, but all this information is important because we know the value of what this data can do for conservation, for management, for policy. So and of course, if it's repeated data, that's helpful as well because it helps to understand patterns. So in all, all of this, all the different data sets can play a role and can be. The key thing is, how can they be made accessible? How can the information be utilized? And that's what citizen science can help to do.
Do you think, I mean, just picking up on what you said there as well, do you think that citizen science has become more easy to promote to the public because of things like climate change and the conversations about biodiversity, rather than, I mean, the snail thing that you talked about?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very specific evolutionary adaptation question, which it might have been more difficult to get people to engage with, whereas everybody hears about butterflies and pesticide use every day. Do you think it's given it a boost?
I think it has, because what comes along with it, and most of the time when you launch a citizen science initiative, engagement and making things understandable is a key part of it. And that is really, it's making science understandable to various audiences. So that's key. So it helps to break it down and make it more accessible. So in a way, it does do that. And that was one of the key things that we did with the Evolution Mega Lab, what we seek to do through the other initiatives. So that's why some of the collaborations that we have are so important, have been so essential. For example, when we launched iSpot in 2009, a simple thing happened where we launched the platform in June to the public. And it was the October that a little girl at home saw a moth on a windowsill. Her dad was a recorder and he knew about iSpot and he posted it on iSpot. And we got confirmation within a couple of hours that it was a moth from Asia. First time found in Europe. And we put the story out there, and you wouldn't believe how it just took over the whole story of iSpot and really helped us. We couldn't have paid for a better launch. Just the thought that the little girl found it and it ended up being something rare. And the part of the story that people like is the end part of the story where she took it to show and tell at school. And then it came into our curator and we took it into the Natural History Museum. So it's now at the Natural History Museum. So it just shows, without iSpot, would we have been able to do that without citizen science? Who knows? And there are other stories, similar things. So it's one of those things that the more we make it relatable, the more we make science relatable, the more people will understand the value and the interconnections. Because of course we need to understand the interconnections to take action as well.
Yeah, and Mimi's put a comment in the chat there, and actually I think relates to what you just said, and maybe you could develop it a bit about what do you see the trajectory then of citizen science moving forward over the next 5-10 years? In 10 years' time, if you were giving this talk, what would you hope you were able to say about it?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that I'll still be, I'll still be doing it. Hopefully, who knows? Resolution thing.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
I'm hoping that some of these things, and one of the big issues around it, of course, that can negatively impact is continuity and funding. As we know, a lot of these initiatives are externally funded, and when a funding pot ends, it's difficult to continue. So one of the things that we try to do is to facilitate a legacy, and the OU underwrites the main costs for iSpot and Trizilla, for example, but we still have to seek fund to do new things. So I think we want to make sure that we would like to see, I'd like to see that funding is not an issue to do these things, that people can get engaged in these things in easier ways, that it will continue to evolve, and new ideas will come into it, and it will continue to evolve as a contributory factor in lots of areas. It will continue to evolve across different specialisms as well. It's utilized a lot in the science areas, in some other areas as well. But then to see interlinkages, because of course there are connections between these areas. So that's why we've had an interest, for example, in arts and STEM, and trying to facilitate that link as well. So I'm hoping to see it continue to grow and continue to have a major impact, and that we're able to demonstrate this impact as well. And help to facilitate change so that it can contribute to making the changes we need to see to stop some of the devastation that we're having at the moment.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. Okay. Question in the chat. Did you? This is an interesting one. Did you see more uptake of things like iSpot during the lockdown, when people maybe were just in their gardens and so on?
It was quite interesting because we got, and some of this is anecdotal because it's through the comments and discussions on the forums and the posts that people put up, where they found that a lot of people came back to iSpot during this time. We saw that, which was quite good. We saw what did change was where people recorded from. They were recording from more local areas, more nearer to home, more centered to home. But there was definitely some change in use. As I said, some people came back. We haven't done a full study on it yet, but we know that anecdotally people talked about how the impact it had on their whole well-being. They were able to go out, come back and put something in iSpot. They were able to explore iSpot if they couldn't get outside. So it kept a connection with nature when it was a real dire time for us all.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you mentioned another question from me then. You mentioned when you were covering Treezilla, something at the which would be really on the agenda of this audience, about you can score whether trees are diseased or not, and you know. Have you got anything you could elaborate on disease and that type of reporting? Is anything?
Well, we have had discussions with because we have to have discussions about how we can cross-reference this information with other tree recording apps that report this, but we haven't sort of reached a conclusion on this. We do collaborate, we do talk. We're all part of a citizen science tree health network, and we do meet, we do talk, we do share, but we do need to do more with sort of sharing the information as well, and that's something that we're looking at in terms of the contributions that Treezilla data can provide. And we don't know how much has been recorded in that respect, because we haven't been really looking at the data that comes from that, but there is the ability to report some of these aspects in not as detailed as other like some of the other tree recording apps for this purpose, but there is the ability to do that.